Alright, I guess it's time to explain how to use the potential system in this game, because if you want to make an auto team and you don't know how to use the potential system, then you're in trouble, right? That's obviously the most important thing in this game. But really, potential allows you to do a lot more things other than just plain scoring, although it is obviously a very much scoring intended mechanic. Anyway, let's just go and see what we can do with that. So to access your potential menu, you go to idle, and then after that you look for this thing, which says potential unlock, right? So you go and select that, and at first it will show you a list of idols. Now by default, I'm pretty sure it shows like by this, and this option is not checked. So it's gonna look a little bit like this or like this. I think it's like this by default, usually Q's at the top. So what I like to do is first pop up, open the filter options and select fan count, right? Because that makes the most sense. And then after that, you want to see the idols that you have most fans of. Why is fans important? It's because the number of fans you have for a particular idol determines the amount of potential points you can use on that specific idol. So this page allows you to browse through every single idol and see how much potential points you have for each. They're called produce points technically, and they go from 0 to 35. Right now I don't have anyone at 0, but I have some of them at 1, and I have some at 35. Now normally when you raise stuff with fans, it only goes up to 30. We'll explain why, how do you get 35 after this, because there are a lot of things to cover. So first of all, you need fans. Chances are you're not like me and you actually have a life and you don't play this game 24/7 like it's a full-time job. So you're gonna look for whatever idols that you do have fans of, and then you're gonna have select them. Now if for some reason you have, like me, some idols that are really max potential, right? Or you can't assign any more points to them. For example, say let's look at an idol that isn't max potential but can have points assigned to. So we have Umi over here, who has 21 potential points, and 21 out of 21 has been spent. But Nene over here has 1 potential point that I can spend. So the filter option that I turned off at the beginning of this video, this option over here just tells you, okay, which are the idols that I haven't spent points on yet. And that removes all my 35 out of 35 idols. You see over here it shows 24 out of 25, 20 out of 21. It doesn't show any of my max potential idols anymore. So that's always useful if you want to do that. Of course, you can filter by cute, cool, passion. This is for voiced idols. In case you hate all the unvoiced idols, you can do that. You got even more detailed stuff here. Usually you'd never use this menu because it's really inconvenient. Do you like remember the blood type of your idol? Yeah. Then there's sort by height. All sorts of nonsense here. You can have 3 sizes, but you know, some of them don't actually have a measurement, so you have this option. You know, it gets all sorts of messy once you start messing around with that. So generally, second tab is where it's at. If you want to find a specific idol by name, you can sort here. So for example, if I'm looking for someone, say I don't know, Kako, Nasu, because insert joke here. Anyway, yeah, that's how you search for an idol, right? Search option resets all your filters. It's that simple. So there's not that much else other to this page. It allows you to view your cards at a glance and stuff like that. But there's one very interesting feature about this page that I want to point out real quick. Some of you may know that if you go to a specific card, long press the idol, there's this button over here that allows you to pull up quick options. Now if I press potential unlock, we're gonna go to the potential unlock page of the idol, right? This is about what we expect. We haven't talked about this page yet, we'll get to that in a second. But what if I go over here, go to this page, now I'm going to turn the filter on that only shows the idols that can increase their potential. So now Yoshino is no longer in my list here, right? So what happens when Yoshino is no longer in my list and I want to change her potential from this shortcut? The page just decides, nope, and sends you right here. So if you want that feature to work 100% of the time, I recommend turning all your filters off. That's just how it works. This game is programmed by a multi-dollar company or something like that. So you have to deal with stuff like this. Okay, let's have a look. So this is the potential unlock screen. This is where you actually do the stats assignment. So it looks like there's a lot of shit here, and it can get confusing. So let's walk through the stuff from top to bottom. This brings you up your health. Chances are, if you can't read Japanese, this is of no use to you. This shows you all the cards that you own of that idol. Now this is very useful if you want to find out like what cards do you have, and if they are hiding in a dormitory somewhere, you should also be able to identify them through here. Now none of my Yoshino cards are in the dormitory, so we're gonna pull up an idol that probably has some cards in the dormitory real quick. We're gonna go all the way back. So when you have idols that are in the dormitory, you'll have this blue banner underneath them, right? And that tells you that you have this idol, but it's somewhere else. It's in storage somewhere. So there are no filters over here. The filters are the standard ones. These are the sorting options. You rarely use them unless you want to sort by like star rank or something like that. So that is how that thing works. Then the next thing you'll see is this info button over here next to your number of produced points. It tells you about the maximum number of produced points you have, and then it shows you the amount of produced recipes you have. So remember when I said that potentials go up to 35, but maximum that you can get from fans is 30. So this item is how you gain additional potential over 30. Now your idol doesn't have to be 30 to receive a recipe. Your idol can be any number of potential. I could go to a potential 1 idol right now, and I could still spend recipes. See, it doesn't stop me from doing that. But of course, you see, it wouldn't be the smartest thing to do, right? You can get potential real easy through fans, and you only really need the additional 5 if you are very desperate for 5 additional, or you need the overcap for scoring. So I would hold on to these if you really have a lot of them lying around. It's good to have them lying around. So the bottom part of this menu shows you exactly what I've been trying to explain to you guys, which is you can have 30 produced points through fans, 5 through this recipe, 30 through fans. And the cap is different, right? Over here it tells you your current fan, and it tells you how many more fans until you get your next one. So over here I'll need 4,800 more fans, and I will get my next point of potential. Alright, so when you have maximum amount of potential, it shows 30 out of 30, and it shows that you can't gain any more, right? And then if you go to an idol that has 30 potential but not 35, you can see that it says here 30 out of 30, but 30 out of 35, and it says 0 out of 5 over here. That's as simple as it gets. So what about the next part? You have 5 options over here, from the left to the right: vocal, dance, visual, life, and skill activation chance. Now, the reason why this UI looks kind of stupid, where it has 2 pages, is because skill activation chance was added later, at a later date. The game was first introduced these 4 potentials and introduced skill chance later. Anyway, what are these individual lines? It tells you that if you have a normal for this card, it gains 1000 vocal. If you have a rare, it gains 750. If you have an SR, it gains 700, and an SSR, it gains 500. Now you notice that it's not the same across all stats. Vocal, dance, and visual work in this way, where it's 1000, 750, 700, 500. But if you look at life, life works differently, where normals gain less life and SSRs gain the most life. Skill activation chance, on the other hand, is completely different. 20% across the entire range. So this is how you select your stats, right? So I'm gonna go to an idol that I haven't spent points on. We're gonna show you what spending your points is like. So this idol has 6 points available. I can tap the plus and minus sign to decide what I want. And over here, it will show me what items I need. So the amount of items that you need is determined by the tier. If I put 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, because they're all the first tier or the first point inside each stat, the amount of items you require very little. So it says here, I need 25, but that's because each first point only takes 5, right? But if you put a lot into a single stat, it gets progressively more and more expensive. The final tier pretty much takes 10 tiaras, something like that. I'm pretty sure it's 16 tiaras per 10 stat. So you're gonna need more and more materials the more points you put into a specific stat. And that's how you do it. Once you, if you don't want to type the minus sign, you press clear button, it resets it. Simple as that. And if you're confirmed your choice, you can press the confirm button. So let's confirm, say 6 skill potential. We're gonna press this button. And that's it. Ta-da! The last button over here resets the potential. So let's say I didn't like the potentials that I spent. I can reset the potential. It tells me though that I'm going to lose all these items if I do not have this item called the clock. So this clock, magic clock, right? It allows you to reset your potentials and gain all these items back. In order to use one, I have to tick this checkbox. If I don't tick this checkbox, I'm gonna lose all the items. So in this particular case, these items are not really particularly super valuable to me. I can choose that I don't want to spend a clock, instead I would just reset my potential like that. And if I press OK, my 6 potential points are returned back to me. But let's say we go to an idol that has far more potential, right? Let's take a look at an idol with 35 potential. If I were to reset, as you can see, I'm gonna lose 48 tiaras and 180 dresses and over 1000 earrings. So this is a lot of materials. In these cases, you will want to use a clock, and then you would use this checkbox option. Simple as that. So the other question that some people may have is, how do you earn these recipe things and how do you earn these clocks? You can buy them for dupe medals if you have a lot of money and you are rich. But the best way to earn these are through events. So if you fall within the top 10,000 for an event or complete certain requirements, for example, parade, I believe it's 1.15 million attendees, and for carnival you need to roll into a certain box. So depending on the event, the requirement to get a recipe is different. Usually they are only in the start and end of month events, so you can get about 24 a year roughly. Did I do the math right? Something like that. So then for clocks, you get them through pretty much all events, but the requirements to get them is also different, so you need to check each individual event to find out how do you get these. Now, unlike recipes, you can also exchange clocks through star fragments, which is something I explained in another video very briefly about gacha mechanics. If you have a lot of spare star fragments, you can also get clocks through that. And that pretty much sums up all the basics of operating this system. Now you know how to assign points, but do you know what points to assign to? So, skill potential is the thing that everybody talks about, right? It's this magical thing that people say, oh, you don't need stats, you need to assign skill potential. But the question that nobody answers is why, right? Why do I put skill potential? So, skill potential works very simply, in that there is a base activation chance for every single skill, and you add this amount to it. You don't do any fancy multiplicative stuff. It is not multiply by 1.2. It is simply an add. Now, you don't know what the activation chance is just by looking at it in game, but there is a lot of documentation on the internet about how exactly these skills work. So if it's, for example, a SSR that has high skill activation like this skill, it is 60%. And so when I do have 10 skill potential, it is going to increase that to 80%. And then when your card type matches the song type, so for example, if I'm playing a tricolor song or I'm playing a cool song, I would get an additional 30% multiplicative. So this is the only math you need to do, only multiplication you need to do. And you just need to say that, okay, what is 30% of 80%? 30% additional is 24. And that means that I have 104 activation chance. And that is why SSRs that have high skill activation chance are 100% chance underneath 10 skill potential. And that's why it's so important. You go from having like basically no activation chance to having 100%. And that makes your scoring a whole lot more consistent. It means that the average score is going to be much higher. And that is the reason why people recommend skill potential. So, when do you use the rest of the potentials then? After you've done skill potential, you want to use probably a main stat. So the way you identify a main stat is you look at your card. For example, let's go to this one. This card, main stat is dance. How do I know? I look at the 3 numbers, I look at the biggest one. Simple as that. However, not every single card that an idol has is the same main stat. What about this card? This card also has happens to be dance. But what about this card? Oh, this card is visual. So you see that when you open a card, when an idol has a card, you're not guaranteed to have the same main stat. And in fact, there are certain idols in this game that have all 3 main stats. Off the top of my head, Yoshino is one of those idols, and it is fun. For example, you can take a look at her SSR 4. Visual. You can take a look at her latest one, vocal. And then you can take a look at her SSR 2, dots. So in this case, how do I know which main stat to pick, right? So you pick the one that you use the most and you find the most useful. And then when everything fails, you resort to clocking. Have fun. But, okay, what about life? Life is pretty much the most useful when you have cards that are life sparkle in your team. It could also be an SR life sparkle, so for example in Yoshino's case she has an SR life sparkle over here. This is one particular option. But if you don't have life sparkle, there's a very good chance that life is not useful. Most of the time, life is used in auto teams to be able to survive more hits. Remember when you raise life, you get an additional up to a maximum of 22 life per card. And that 22 life means 1 additional miss you can take. Because a miss deals 20 damage. So you can use this to try and get through slightly harder songs. It is one of the ways to do that. Otherwise, for the most part, if you need life, you probably know you need life. And by then you're doing some kind of score team, score build. That's why you would probably ignore life for the most part until you actually know what you're doing with team building. So, are there reasons to have skill potential 0? There are, technically, but they are also not very beginner friendly applications. First of all, one of them that you can think of is guests. When you are looking for high score ranking, for example, you don't actually want the card to have skill potential because the stats are not useful to you. So let's say I go down to a song right now. I'm just gonna start any song. I don't know what song I was on last time. So I'm gonna scroll through some of the guests here. Right, let's look for something interesting. Let's have a look at one of these rezos, I guess. So in this case, because they do not have full 30 potential in stats, I'm actually missing some stats due to the 10 potential in skill here. And if you want to be a real nice person and you know you're not using that idol, you can put your idols in full stat. So sometimes you'll be able to look for them. So let's say I want to sort by appeal. This is not a guide on how to find guests, but we're gonna sort by appeal. Look for example. Let's look for a reso. Same one as just now. So over here, this is an example of all 35 points being in stats. And so these cards are desirable as guests if you want to be a nice person, but otherwise if you're using the card, it is far better for you to not dodge the skill activation chance. There are a few more reasons you might want to not have skill activation chance, but they are also pretty advanced, and by that point you probably already know what you're doing, so I'm not gonna go through them over in this video that's already 20 minutes long. Anyway, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. The only thing that you really want to take note of is how exactly each potential scales, right? Each point that you put into the potential gives you a slightly different amount of stats, so you're gonna have to be very careful. For example, skill potential doesn't actually get very high until you put the last few points in, so you can't really skimp out on the skill potential. That's just something to take note. Anyway, I think that covers all that you need to know about this topic. Now you are familiar with the skill potential system and how to use it. So have fun grinding fans in order to get all of these done. This is not a fan grinding video. Maybe we'll make one at some point in the future. But I hope that this was informative and this helped solve some of the questions that you guys might have had. Do let me know down in the comments section below if you would like to see more of this sort of thing, and maybe if you have a specific topic in mind that you would like help with, or a specific question, you can leave it there and I'll see if I can help you find an answer to it, or maybe I could make a whole video about it if I feel like it's a common enough question. So yes, thank you very much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and do all that funny YouTuber stuff that people tell you to do all the time. And of course, you can share this video with a friend if it helped you, because chances are it might also help them, and that's really the main point of these kind of videos. So, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.